Okay, before I even begin this video, I want you to understand that white, Jewish, and LGBT supremacists are running a psychological operation on me because they know that I'm right. They know that I'm right about things that have to do with social order. They have to do with race relations and gender relations. And they have to do with morally precise romantic relations. Again, morally precise romantic relations. The type of moral precision that clearly transcends every group that you've ever heard of. And by now, many of you should know that I'm more sincere than anyone you've ever heard of. They made it so that I sound like a theater art person like Obama or something because I naturally have a much more soothing voice than Obama or anyone else. I don't sound like a politician naturally or a church person. And they have powerful technologies that make it so they can make it so I sound bipolar. They can make it so I sound like a propagandist. I despise propaganda, and I rebuke the government and the churches and the mosques and the synagogues and any group that would talk in a way that is Western propaganda-like. I do not want to sound like you. I would never sink to your level. Let's get into it. Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. Now, this video is about Santa Cruz, California. It's about gentrification. It's about corporatism. It is about the trajectory of America and why it is very foolish. Why it is an abomination. It's a failure. It's stupid. Now, most people accept that Joe Biden didn't do a great job as president. Heck, no one in my lifetime has done a great job as president. In fact, no one in American history has done a really good job as a president. And a lot of it has to do with what goes on behind the scenes. And so I'm going to kind of reach out to the white community, the Jewish community, and the LGBT community on this one, because they have a lot of power when it comes to who lives where and why. And I want them to really ask themselves, is the answer to the situation to be like an Apple Jacks commercial back in the day? When they were asked, why do you like Apple Jacks? They said, we just do. Well, what if you could break it down why you like it that way? And that would make it better for everybody. And also, what if you could break it down why you like it that way and it makes it better for you and you find a better way that you like more and it's better for you and your families? This is key in what they really have to ask themselves. Okay, now let's prove my point here. In America and everywhere else on this planet, when it comes to money, when it comes to sex appeal, it isn't as simple as just get as much as you can, no matter the cost. No. When it comes to money, for example, it's like a birthday cake at a birthday party. Well, let's say the birthday kid, he decides to let everyone, cut their own slice. And one kind of mischievous kid, he cuts a huge slice, say half the cake, and there's 10 other kids. And they decide to let him get away with it. And at first he's laughing, he's saying, I got a big old cake, it's all the cake I could want, and so on and so forth. But then, later on, he starts crying. And his mother asks him, why are you crying? He says he feels like such a jerk. As he looks back at it and thinks about how when he was eating his cake, the other kids were looking sad, some were crying. Some were saying, hey, I'll make it up to you later. Trying to cheer them up. They were suffering to some degree. When we look at the cake of the American economy, people are dying. They're getting raped and killed. Children are getting abused. People are slipping in all kinds of unsavory states. And the answer isn't to stop a logical discussion. The answer is to have a logical discussion. You often get Satanists who want to blame God. This is bad for two obvious reasons. One, that people have been blaming God forever and it doesn't change anything. It does not address the obvious, right? People have been in the spirit of blaming God as a society, and it doesn't change anything. Some people would argue, well, the churches and this and that. No, if they actually didn't blame God by their actions, they would scramble to do what's right to the best of their ability. They wouldn't just take on a shallow, lukewarm at best way about them. Well, all kinds of horrible things are happening at church and to their congregation and in their congregation, what have you. So they've been blaming God and accusing God. So this has been the situation, and America's now $37 trillion in debt. It's like 800,000 homeless, including 100,000 homeless children. They don't know what to do about it. 60,000 people die from a lack of adequate access to health care and medical care. 70,000 people die every year from fentanyl, 50,000 from suicide, and on and on and on. Every 6.5 minutes, a woman or child is raped. So blaming God instead of trying to be righteous is not the answer. It's like a spirit of Satanism where they think the answer is to blame God instead of rally for what is actual sense. And quite often you see people like Charlie Kirk and Donald Trump and Democrats as well and libertarians, and they act like they have the common sense solution, and they never do. They've accepted the boundaries of blaming those with sense and preventing them from rising while pretending they have common sense. So we know for sure that doesn't work. Number two, a lot of people, while they're rebelling against God, mind you, see themselves as loyal to God. So if you say, is it our fault, and to blame God, what happens? You just piss people off when your argument isn't even logical in the first place. And my goodness, have we seen that cause all kinds of trouble. As Satanism rose in this country, so did all kinds of problems. It was instrumental in the lack of a logical response to the coronavirus, whether you believe the coronavirus is real or not. The response wasn't exactly an optimum response from society, because a lot of people had a dark cloud over their heads. They're too busy playing the dog-eat-dog game. Pretty straightforward. That's not the answer. Trying to get everyone to be atheist is not the answer. This doesn't even begin to solve the problem. What does atheism have to do with the economy? Whether or not someone's an atheist or not, they can solve the economy, the economic problems, by having sound solutions. What is the solution then? Well, the solution is to pinpoint the solution, and it starts with discussions. It starts with asking people, hey, why do you want to gentrify Santa Cruz? Why do you want it that way? Let me give you an example of what's wrong with Santa Cruz. No offense to the people of Santa Cruz. I'm sure you know deep in your souls and in your hearts that this has to be said. When you go to Santa Cruz historically, to some degree the police are on your bumper. Say if you're black or if you're a white guy who looks like he smokes weed or something. To some degree they're watching you. And a lot of black people don't go to Santa Cruz and start shooting people, stabbing people, kidnapping people, robbing. They just don't really have a problem with that there. It's more the locals who cause those problems. They have problems with heroin, they have problems with gangs, what have you. So why the hell are they on my bumper? Because they're trying to preserve the atmosphere in Santa Cruz, which is conducive to their psychotic control of society in general. They're trying to control who dates who lives where. Even though Santa Cruz is a boardwalk city, it's a beach city. If there's that kind of injustice in Santa Cruz, it affects the whole world, really. But certainly Northern California, absolutely, especially there, we're affected. If they don't want black people to go to Santa Cruz and live there and find their way there, every black community on the planet is affected, especially ones right by Santa Cruz. They don't want Northern Hispanics there. If they want to enslave Southern Hispanics. If they want to turn white people against other races, and on and on. And you'll see that I'm right about this shortly. So the police there are notorious for helping with the gentrification process. They're not the worst police force in human history. Some of them are probably kind of cool. But boy, do they play the New World Order game. It's like best described as an occult city. It's a grimy city, a grungy city with lots of homeless people. Now, some of the locals try to help some of those homeless people, but it doesn't do much. The city is still full of injustice, and it's not only a theme park city, a boardwalk city, it is also a beach city, where like every single store has the beach in mind. They sell t-shirts and surfboards. The kind of food they have available, where it's located. It has the theme of this city in mind, this multicultural city, which is tainted by white, Jewish, and LGBT supremacy. In recent years, lots of Jews have moved in, white-skinned Jews. I don't so much care about that, but it's why exactly they moved in that's alarming. So you have white, Jewish, and LGBT supremacy there, and people try to say, watch what you're saying. They try to cancel your culture. Last time I was there, one of the last times, some white guy downtown who has mentally ill started yelling about keep Santa Cruz the same because I was making a speech in downtown Santa Cruz. Instead of accepting that it is a beach city and downtown is like a stone throw away from the boardwalk, and people who visit the boardwalk often visit Santa Cruz, downtown Santa Cruz as well, he thought that it should be a very white, grimy, homeless person who is on drugs sort of city, and where that meets with the rockers, who many of them have been to prison and jail, at least jail, and have joined prison gangs like the Aryan Brotherhood and the Woods prison gang. And they spread a sentiment of white supremacy into the community. There's many LGBT people there, lesbians. There's Greek societies. It's also a college town, UC Santa Cruz. And Cabrillo is a stone throw away from Santa Cruz. Cabrillo in Capitola. Cabrillo College. There's a lot of marijuana dispensaries. Historically, it's a marijuana city, and that's part of what their concern is because there's a significant marijuana trade that has occurred there historically, especially before cannabis became legal. So if you didn't know where to get weed in your city, you might visit Santa Cruz and try to buy some weed, which isn't the end of the world, and eventually marijuana would become legal. And the people who think it should be illegal have never made a logical argument as to why it should be illegal, why alcohol and tobacco, especially cigarettes, which is a very harmful form of tobacco in pretty much every cigarette company, okay, with the nicotine and whatever else they're doing there. They've never made a logical argument as to why it should be illegal. In fact, it's very much connected to the fact that they've never made a logical argument as to why they should keep Santa Cruz a white, Jewish, and LGBT supremacist city, where the Jews in recent years have come there in higher numbers. And it's very much connected to their suppression of the Palestinian movement and the controlled opposition in the Palestinian movement. It basically goes like this, no offense to anyone, this is a part of it. If you actually support Palestine and want a sane solution, they screen you out real quick. If you don't, but you represent Palestine, unless you're a very privileged person, they give you somewhat of a hard time. Some of these famous people who are privileged people, they give them a hard time for good measure to confuse it. If you don't see through this, what the hell do you see through? You should know that that's what it is, right? And those kind of dirty politics just ruin society. What good is anything after that? Even miniature golf sucks after that. Who are you going to play it with? A bunch of spoiled brats that worship the devil? You're better off playing it by yourself. Better off, digging a hole in your backyard, getting a golf club, and just being by yourself. Because of the LGBT radicals, lots of people look gender neutral. You don't go to the beach and see a bunch of hot chicks anymore. No. You see people, you don't know if they're a male or female. No offense to anybody. A lot of the people in the LGBT community feel the same way. But I'm sure their opinion doesn't matter to the LGBT radicals who believe either you're with them or against them, and they have all kinds of corporate money backing them up. While some people, some groups are allowed to look less gender neutral so they can act like they're more manly and superior. And I'm sure you know how that goes when the kind of, South Africans, the neo-Nazis and the Klan and just racist prison gangs and all the kinds of unsavory characters meet halfway with LGBT radicals on the left and Zionists, what have you. When those groups meet halfway, the old Hegelian principle, everything goes to hell. In fact, it's so predictable that everything goes to hell that the word Hegel is an anagram, right? for hell egg. You scramble the letters of Hegel, you get hell egg with one G instead of two. But two G's aren't needed. You get the picture the first time. Hell egg. So they're controlling the reproductive cycle, meaning halfway to unite people, right? Unite, nighttime. Darkness, chaos, confusion, night. What have you. So when you go to Santa Cruz, again, I'm not trying to bash Santa Cruz. You should go to Santa Cruz. You should go to Santa Cruz and spend money. Enjoy yourself. Take a good look around. But when you go to Santa Cruz, know that there are racist people who are rock and roll fans, who don't want you around unless you fit the theme. They don't want you to go there too much. They want your money. They don't want you. There are racist people who are in skinhead gangs. And just today I came across a video about Santa Cruz. It's part of what inspired me to make this video, where he talks about the gangs there. There's small groups of northern Hispanics. They're probably cool for the most part, especially because they're under siege. There's large groups of southern Hispanics. To some degree, they're cool. Believe it or not, I've had some neutral interactions with them, some favorable interactions with them. There used to be groups of Crips there, and they got gentrified out. I don't care so much. I'm not a gang member. There's various people into politics there who are very similar to Hillary Clinton. They want to control the black man, and their actions have spoken louder than their words. And again, I don't hate Hillary Clinton or something, but she did say the young black man are, there's young black kids that are super predators out there, downplaying that society made them what they were. Right? Made in America, no place else. You go to some countries in Africa, they're very peaceful. The less the white man is there meddling, trying to take his blood diamonds and stuff like that, the more peaceful the area is the rule of thumb. Pretty straightforward. But the racists who want to gentrify Santa Cruz, they don't understand that. There's some hippies there and they're cool, but they don't have a lot of power. There's some homeless people there and they're kind of cool and they don't have a lot of power. The people who have a lot of power in Santa Cruz, oh man, for the most part, they're on some bitch shit. Either they're a pushover or they're leading the charge as a monster. Someone once pointed out to me, do you know what you call the people who supported Hitler who didn't have anything against Jews? When Hitler was rising to power, for instance. They're called Nazis. Do you know what you call the people who have their head down, who play stupid about gang stalking and support the white racists and the Jewish racists and the LGBT radicals that run Santa Cruz? They're called New World Order monsters. They're on the pirate ship. They're on board. They're traitors to humanity. Like Donald Ewan Cameron pointed out, he was a fairly famous psychiatrist, that it's more than just the psycho that is the problem. It is also the passive. And that they both need to be screened out of the human genome. Now, again, I don't entirely agree with them needing to be screened out. I do think they need help. But I do not believe in controlling reproduction in some kind of fanatic way. I believe that people should have free will. The people who run Santa Cruz and the planet, they do not believe that. They believe that you should be their bitch. And they should tell you who to date and what to wear and how to think. There's one of these people who was an expert in white supremacy. He was a white person who studied it for many years. He used to actually be a white supremacist. He said that one of the main problems in white supremacy is culturalism. They don't like people who don't think like them, who don't walk like them, who don't buy the same vehicles they do, etc. Be it right-wingers or left-wingers. They say, take our culture. White supremacy is best described as white cultural supremacy first, and then white racial supremacy after that. But then again, it's kind of right sub-racial supremacy. Right? It's a white power structure where the rich bloodlines are elevated above the poor ones. And the Jews were on board so much that before Hitler's rise to power, lots of Jews that is, that they supported the eugenic movement. In fact, you look at Margaret Sanger and you compare her to the various Jews you see on the TV in Israel, it's like a spitting image. She probably was a Jew. I've seen some Klansmen that were probably Jews. because crypto Jews, like when they become skinheads, or some say in prison, they join a white prison gang, they don't always offer the fact that they're a Jew. And they leverage that historically. And they breed with other races. And they collaborate with each other, and they're more clannish than other groups, and it's helped them get a lot of money over the years. That's really their trick. It's a mix between the fact that they had a written tradition when a lot of people had an oral tradition, and it's what goes on behind the scenes in terms of their collaboration. I mean, just look at the intelligence community. If you were to read about the intelligence apparatus, of Israel, if you were to read about intelligence agencies, you would quickly come to the conclusion that the Jewish intelligence agencies and the Mossad, what have you, which is a Jewish intelligence agency, that they have disproportionate influence. They have inordinate influence over politics, especially in the Middle East. Now again, believe it or not, to me, that's not so important. What they do with it is important. In fact, I'm not greedy. When you look at my 5.4 trillion plan, this is over 30 years, might even take as long as 50 years to do it. The idea is to redistribute, to make it so that people who are less than millionaires have 10% more of the wealth in, say, America than they do right now. 10% more, right? Proportional. So if the rich had, say, $200 trillion, okay, and the poor had, say, $100 trillion, just throwing some numbers out there, that 20 trillion would go to the poor. But it's actually more than that, because the wealth of both groups would expand over the time. So if the rich's wealth expanded to 400 trillion and the poor's to 200 trillion, okay, then they would have 240 trillion and the rich would have 360 trillion. They still would have lots of more money than the poor, when they're only like 7% of America. The people worth $1 million and up. There's 22.5 millionaires and billionaires in America. Now it's interesting when you look at this thing, how I had to touch on all these issues to describe the gentrification problem in Santa Cruz. And you'd get some kind of ignorant, inbred person arguing, hey, why don't you just stick to the topic? I am sticking to the topic. If you remember, I started off telling you that there's whites and Jewish and LGBT supremacists that control Santa Cruz. They control the process. They come together in groups. Freemasons and Democrats and Republicans and corporate groups, right? Most people think of them as corporate groups, but there's other groups there as well. There's even college frats that have their hand in it. Alumni, what have you. Alumni of universities. And so to get to the heart of the issue, I had to bring up how these people are aligned to global movements. It's like, look at the MAGA movement or the Proud Boys. There's Proud Boy chapters in other countries. So part of explaining the Proud Boys is explaining other countries. Part of explaining Democrats is explaining leftists, in other countries, right? Is explaining things like that. Part of explaining why it is insane to think that organized harassment doesn't exist not only involves touching on things that are acknowledged, like, the Zionists versus the, pro-Palestinian protesters, but it's also touching on who has the means, motive, and ability, and talking about the evidence, and including the empirical evidence. So it is insane to look at Santa Cruz and chop it up to, well, people just kind of do their own thing and people aren't as organized as you think. Really? Perhaps the military isn't organized. Perhaps law enforcement isn't organized. Perhaps the intelligence community, no organization whatsoever. Perhaps in corporations, they wouldn't dream of organizing anything. In fact, there's groups, many groups are even called organizations. They are called organizations. But you think there is no organized effort to gentrify and to redline and to gerrymander and to social engineer, to urban plan and city development. How do they even plan when they talk about urban planning if they're not considering the social dynamic? Could that even be done? No, of course not. If you don't know I'm right about this video, you are a dumbass. It's one thing to not know I'm right about this video because you're very slow. It's another thing to hear these arguments and still insist that I'm wrong. That's crazy. That is crazy. But in case you're struggling with any of these ideas, please put in the comments. We can discuss it. So we see these various geopolitical forces at play. We see these socioeconomic forces at play. We see the organizations, the entities, the groups, the societies. We see the movements. We see the social relations, the race relations, the gender relations. We see a society that when you look at their sum total output, it reflects that their overall societal motive is pathetic. Their formula is pathetic. Their model is pathetic and their output is pathetic. It is pathetic for racism to still be a problem in America in 2025 when we have like the most pronounced movie industry on the planet, Hollywood. What action stars are more famous than American action stars? See, Rambo, historically. Jean-Claude Van Damme, people that were brought here from other countries even when they make their best movies. Things are explained to people in school and in movies and in comic books and cartoons, in colleges, in a country where most adults have a college education, last time I checked. But yet, the most righteous person that ever lived is not welcome in Santa Cruz. That is outrageous. They go out of their way to sabotage my car. They go out of their way to confuse people about what ideal looks like. People are so confused about what ideal looks like that the most ideal man is not welcome in the heart of multiculturalism. The heart of multiculturalism of the whole planet is basically Santa Cruz, California, because it's not just a fanatically left-leaning city. It is a beach city. It is a boardwalk city. One of the most famous liberal universities on the planet is UC Santa Cruz. Angela Davis, who was a Black Panther, used to teach there. But yet the most righteous person that ever lived, who's biracial, whose religion is universal, pinpointed moral precision. I'm not ethnocentric at all. I'm not welcome there because the federal government puts pressure on people. Because the governing class and the corporations and the state government puts pressure on people. Because the city government puts pressure on people and there's pressure put on them. So when people go to an event in Santa Cruz these days, know you're seeing the output of white, Jewish, and LGBT supremacy, and God and Christ are against you with all of their being. And so the answer clearly is to discuss these things and to let people have proper representation in these discussions. And first and foremost, I, the voice of reason, need proper representation. I've commented on countless videos as the son of 2 doctors, one a brain surgeon, as someone with the top martial arts challenge I've had since 2013, which has proven definitively that I'm the top martial artist. And since no one can one-up me after I'm gone, it proves definitively that I've borne more fruit than any other martial artist in history. I've gone far beyond what they have done in the information age, in the country with the most martial arts schools on the planet. So any discussion that doesn't include me is laughable. It would only include people who did not respond in a way that's respectable and moral to the adversity of, say, the last 10 years, for example. The answer is to discuss things. This video is not about bashing whites, Jews, or LGBT people. It is about telling the truth. And when people sank to the level of making it so that I sound like some kind of theater art person, how many of you think that people aren't capable, naturally, if there's no psyop run on them, if there's no technology, that they aren't capable of not sounding like a theater art person when they make a video at their house? That is something that they did. I'm clearly an honest person, and the groups in society are clearly gaslighting groups run by narcissists, sociopaths, psychopaths, and assorted selfish and greedy people. As I point out many times, when we look at the college frats, right, and their history, they're greedy. Are they Greek societies or are they geek societies? Are they Greek societies or are they greed societies? Or perhaps they're all one and the same when it comes to frats and brats. Thank you.